If you collect a Social Security check, or you're about to, put the phone down for the next few minutes and actually listen, because something is happening this August that most people receiving benefits do not see coming, and by the time they feel it, the money is already gone from their account. There are 5 things shifting right now, all at once, all landing in the same stretch of weeks. 4 of them can quietly shrink the check that hits your bank account. And one of them, the 4th one, the one I'm going to beg you to stay with me for, can take away half of your monthly payment in a single stroke. And the worst part is it does not happen because you did anything wrong. It happens because of a letter. A plain, boring letter that most people set aside to deal with later. And later is exactly when it's too late. But I don't want you walking away from this scared, so let me promise you the other half right now. Buried inside these 5 changes is real good news. There's a raise coming that a lot of you have not heard about yet. There's money some of you already lost that is going to come back to you automatically. And there's a right you have, a right most beneficiaries never use, that can stop the worst of these changes cold if you know to reach for it. So stick with me all the way to the end, because by the time we're done, you're going to know exactly which of these 5 touches your check, exactly what to do about each one, and exactly how to protect what is yours. And before a single person tunes out thinking this doesn't apply to them, let me stop you. It does not matter if you claimed early at 62. It does not matter if you waited until 70. It does not matter if you've been drawing a check for 15 years without a hiccup, or if your first payment hasn't even arrived yet. These 5 changes are built around your payment method, your age, your earnings, and your mail, and every single one of us checks at least one of those boxes. So this is for you. And honestly, it's for anyone you love who's living on this money, because most of them have no idea any of this is in motion. Let me tell you quickly why I am the one walking you through this, because you should know before you trust a word of it. For 22 years, I sat on the other side of the desk. I was a claims specialist inside a Social Security field office, the person who processed the applications, who ran the numbers, who mailed out the notices, and who sat across from people on the worst day of their financial life explaining what a letter meant after it was already too late to undo it. I've seen exactly how these rules work from the inside, and more importantly, I've seen how they get communicated to you, which is to say badly in dense language, buried in envelopes that look like junk. My whole reason for doing this now is simple. I got tired of watching good, careful people lose money they had every right to keep, just because nobody translated the rules into plain English before the deadline passed. So that's what I'm here to do. Now, the first thing I have to do is clear the air, because there is a lot of garbage floating around right now, and I need you to be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's noise. You may have seen headlines or videos screaming that Congress just gutted Social Security, that they voted to end your benefits this August, that the checks are stopping. Let me say this as plainly as I can. That is not true. Nobody passed a law this summer that abolishes Social Security or wipes out your monthly payment. The program is not disappearing on August 1st. Anyone telling you that is either badly misinformed or deliberately trying to frighten you into clicking something, and you should be suspicious of them, not comforted by them. Here's the truth, and it's more useful than the panic. Social Security is not one switch that somebody flips. It's a machine with a lot of moving parts, and right now several of those parts are turning at the same time. There's no single new law. Instead, there are policy changes, annual adjustments, and hard deadlines that all happen to be active this August. And if you don't know they're turning, one of them can catch you. That's actually the good news, because it means you're not helpless in front of some giant new rule. You just need to know which gears are moving and stay clear of the ones that bite. So that's what I've done. I pulled out the 5 that matter most this month, the 5 that are actually reaching into people's checks right now, and I'm going to take them one at a time. Let's start. The first change is that the paper Social Security check is finished, done, gone, and if you are still one of the people getting a physical check in the mail, this is the one that can stop your money entirely. Not reduce it, stop it. And it can happen this month. Here's the background. For decades, you had the option of receiving your benefit as a paper check in the mailbox. But the federal government has been phasing that out, and it's now been formalized through an executive order that requires federal payments to go electronic. The hard cutoff already passed. As of the end of September last year, Social Security stopped issuing new paper checks, and the agency has spent the months since then finishing the job, closing out the last stragglers who never made the switch. If you are still holding on to a paper check in the summer of 2026, you are in the final, shrinking group the system is actively trying to convert, and the patience for that has run out. Now, the numbers here are interesting because they tell you who this hits. Less than 1% of all beneficiaries were still on paper checks by the time the deadline came, so this doesn't touch most people. But think about who that 1% actually is. It's often the oldest beneficiaries. It's people without a bank account, It's people in rural areas, people who don't use computers, people who have done things the same way for 40 years and never had a reason to change. In other words, it's frequently the people least equipped to deal with a sudden interruption in their income, which is exactly why I refuse to skip past this one just because it's a small slice. Let me show you how this goes wrong. Picture a woman, I'll call her Eleanor, who is 84 and has received a paper check on the 3rd of every month for as long as she can remember. She never trusted direct deposit. She likes holding the check, walking it into her bank, depositing it herself. She got the notices in the mail telling her to switch, but they looked like the same government paperwork she's ignored for years, so she set them aside. Then, one month, the check simply doesn't come. She waits a few days, thinks it's the mail, waits a week. Now she's calling family, panicking, and the money she needs for rent and groceries is sitting in a system that can't release it to her until she sets up an electronic option. She didn't lose the benefit, she lost access to it. And getting that access back takes days or weeks she doesn't have. So here's what you do, and it's easy. If you already get your money by direct deposit or on a direct express card, you are done. This rule doesn't touch you, breathe out. But if you or anyone you know is still getting a paper check, handle it this week. You have two clean options: direct deposit into a bank or credit union account, or the direct express debit card, which is built exactly for people who don't have a bank. You set either one up by calling Social Security directly. And there is a narrow waiver available through the Treasury for people who truly cannot go electronic. A real phone line exists for that. But understand that a waiver is the exception, not the plan. The plan is to switch now, on your own schedule, before a missing check forces you to do it in a panic. And let me add one warning here that could save you real money, because a change like this is a gift to scammers. When the government announces that paper checks are ending, criminals come out of the woodwork. They'll call, they'll email, they'll send official-looking letters, and they'll tell you that for a small fee, or if you'll just confirm your Social Security number and your bank details, they can keep your paper check coming. It is a lie. Nobody can legally keep a paper check coming past these rules, and Social Security will never call you out of the blue demanding payment, threatening your benefits, or asking you to read off your account number over the phone. So when you make this switch, you make it by calling Social Security yourself at a number you looked up yourself, never with someone who called you first. The second change isn't a new rule so much as a rule that a lot of people forget exists until it reaches into their check. And it tends to spring shut right around this time of year in the late summer, which is exactly why it belongs in an August warning. Here's the situation. If you claimed your benefits before your full retirement age and you're still working, Social Security limits how much you can earn before it starts holding back part of your check. This is called the earnings test, and it catches people constantly because it feels so counterintuitive. You paid into the system your whole life. You're finally drawing it. And now they're telling you that if you also work, they'll withhold some of it? Yes, that's exactly what happens, and the numbers for this year are specific. If you are under full retirement age for all of this year, you can earn up to $24,480 before the test kicks in. Cross that line, and Social Security withholds $1 of benefits for every $2 you earn above it. Now watch why August matters. Think about someone working a steady part-time job, bringing in a couple $1,000s a month. They start the year fine, well under the limit. But month after month, those earnings add up, and somewhere in the second half of the year, often in the late summer, they quietly cross that $24,000 mark. And that's when the checks start getting held back. Not with a warning the day it happens. The reduction shows up after, and people are blindsided, staring at a smaller deposit, wondering what they did wrong. There's a second version of this for people reaching full retirement age this year, and it's much more generous. You can earn up to $65,160 in the months before your birthday. And the withholding is only $1 for every 3 above that. And the moment you actually hit your full retirement age, the earnings test vanishes completely. You can earn $1 million after that, and it won't touch your benefit. But until you get there, the trap is real. Let me put a face on it. Picture a man, call him Ray, who's 64, drawing his benefit and driving for a delivery service to stay busy and cover the bills. He's not getting rich. But by August, he's earned about $30,000 for the year, which puts him more than $5,000 over the limit. Under the $1 for every 2 rule, Social Security is going to hold back around $2,700 from his benefits. And the way they usually do it isn't by trimming a little off each check. It's by withholding whole monthly payments until the amount is covered. So Ray, who's counting on that money, suddenly has an entire check disappear. And he never saw it coming because nobody sat him down and did the arithmetic. Now here's the part that actually matters, and it's why I want you calm instead of scared. That money's not gone forever. This is the single most misunderstood thing about the earnings test. When Social Security withholds benefits because you earn too much, they don't keep it. Once you reach full retirement age, they recalculate your benefit and give it back to you in the form of a permanently higher monthly payment. So it's a delay, not a loss. But a delay can still wreck a household budget if you're not expecting it. So the takeaway on Rule 2 is this. If you're under full retirement age and you're working, know your number, $24,480 if you're under it all year. Do the math on where your earnings will land by December, and if you're going to cross it, plan for the checks that get held back. Don't let August ambush you. The third change is one that quietly reshapes the biggest financial decision most retirees ever make. And a lot of people are still working off an old number in their head that hasn't been true for years. For a long time, the magic age for full Social Security benefits was 65. Then it was 66. But that finish line has been moving, and for everyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is now 67. Not 65, not 66, 67. And this matters enormously right now because the people turning 62 this year, the age when you first become eligible to claim, are squarely in that group. They're standing at the edge of the biggest money decision of their retirement, and many of them are about to make it based on rules that expired. Here's why the exact age is so expensive. Social Security is designed so that your full benefit arrives at your full retirement age. Claim before that, and your monthly check is permanently reduced, and the earlier you claim, the deeper the cut. When your full retirement age is 67, claiming at the earliest possible moment at 62 locks in a reduction of 30%. 30% for the rest of your life. That's not a temporary haircut that heals itself. Every check, every year, for as long as you live, comes in nearly a third smaller than it could have been. Let me make that concrete, because percentages don't land the way dollars do. Picture a woman, call her Dolores, whose full benefit at 67 would be $2,000 a month. She's 62, she's tired of working, and she decides to claim now. That 30% reduction drops her check to $1,400 a month, $600 a month gone permanently. Over a 20-year retirement, that's a difference of well over $100,000, and Dolores may have a perfectly good reason to claim early. Maybe her health isn't great, maybe she genuinely needs the income now, maybe waiting isn't realistic for her. That can be the right call. The tragedy isn't claiming early. The tragedy is claiming early without understanding the size of what you're trading away. Because nobody told her the full retirement age had moved to 67, and the penalty had grown with it. There's a mirror image to this too, and it's worth knowing, because it's the flip side of the same coin. If you can afford to wait past your full retirement age, your benefit doesn't just stay flat, it actually grows. For every year you hold off between 67 and 70, Social Security adds a bonus to your monthly check, and it keeps climbing until you hit 70, at which point it maxes out. So take our Dolores from a moment ago, with a full benefit of $2,000 at 67. Claim at 62, and she's locked at $1,400 for life. Wait until 70, and that same benefit climbs to roughly $2,480 a month. Look at that spread. $1,400 on the low end, nearly $2,500 on the high end, for the exact same person with the exact same work history. The only variable is the age she pulled the trigger. That's how much this one decision moves. The point isn't that everyone should wait. The point is that this is a real, permanent, high-stakes decision. And the age it's built around quietly moved to 67 while a lot of people weren't looking. So before you claim anything, know your full retirement age and know exactly what claiming early or waiting does to your specific number. 10 minutes with your own statement can be worth 6 figures. All right, stay with me now, because here comes the fourth change. The one I promised you at the very start could take half your monthly payment. And the one that scares me the most, because it's the one where careful, honest, blameless people lose money simply because they didn't open an envelope in time. This is the overpayment rule, and here's what you need to understand. Sometimes Social Security decides it paid you more than it should have. Maybe your earnings changed and the system was slow to catch up. Maybe there was a paperwork error on their end. Maybe your living situation changed and the update lagged. It doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. In fact, very often the beneficiary did nothing wrong at all. But once the agency decides you were overpaid, it wants that money back, and the way it gets it back has changed in a way that can hit like a truck. The default now is that Social Security will withhold up to 50% of your monthly benefit to recover an overpayment, half your check. This applies to new overpayment notices going out under the current policy, and it covers retirement, survivors, and disability benefits. Now, I want to be fair and give you the full picture. This is actually softer than it was for a stretch, when the default briefly swung all the way up to withholding 100%, your entire check, to claw the money back. 50% is the number that policy settled on. But let's be honest about what 50% means to someone living on this income. If your whole budget is built around that monthly payment, losing half of it overnight isn't an inconvenience. It's a crisis. It's the difference between making rent and not. And here is the part that almost nobody understands until it's happening to them. You are not powerless in front of that 50%. When you get an overpayment notice, you have a window. a period of time in which you can respond and change the outcome. You can ask for a lower withholding rate, so instead of losing half your check, you lose a small, manageable slice. You can ask for a reconsideration if you think they've got the facts wrong, if they claim you earned money you didn't, or the amount is off, or you can request a waiver which says, yes, maybe I was technically overpaid, but it wasn't my fault, and paying it back this way would leave me unable to afford food and rent. Each of those is a real option with a real form behind it. But, and this is everything, they only work if you act inside that window. If you ignore the notice or miss the deadline, the 50% withholding just starts automatically. Not because you lost an argument, because you never showed up to have one. Let me show you exactly how this destroys people, because it's not the dramatic scenario you'd imagine. Picture a man, I'll call him Sam, who gets a letter from Social Security in July. It's a plain white envelope, no flashing lights, no urgency on the outside. Inside, in dense agency language, it says he was overpaid and describes what's about to happen. Sam glances at it, doesn't fully understand it, and sets it on the counter with the credit card offers and the grocery flyers, meaning to deal with it later. Later becomes next week. Next week becomes never. 3 weeks after that, a second letter comes and lands in the same pile. And then 1 month, his check arrives at half its usual size, and now Sam is scrambling. But the window to request a lower rate, a reconsideration, or a waiver may already be closing or closed, and unwinding it takes far more time, paperwork, and stress than simply opening that first letter would have. Sam didn't do anything wrong. He just treated an official notice like junk mail. And I have watched that exact story play out more times than I can count. And it breaks my heart every single time, because the person almost always could have kept most of their check if they'd acted in time. So this is the most important instruction in this entire video, and I need you to hear it. Any envelope from the Social Security Administration gets opened the day it arrives. Not later, that day. You read it carefully, and if it mentions an overpayment, you do not sit on it. You respond inside the window it gives you. Ask for the lower rate, or the reconsideration, or the waiver. There are actual forms for exactly this, and the people who use them keep their income. The people who lose half their check are almost always the people who never opened the letter that told them how to stop it. All right, take a breath, because I promised you good news, and here it is, and it's genuinely good. And it's happening this exact month, and almost nobody realizes that August is when it's being decided. The fifth change is your next raise, your cost of living adjustment, the COLA, and the numbers that determine it are being locked in right now over these very weeks. Here's how it works, because once you understand it, you'll never look at the late summer months the same way. Every year, Social Security gives beneficiaries a raise to keep up with inflation, but that raise isn't pulled out of thin air. It's calculated from inflation data during 3 specific months, July, August, and September. The government takes the average price level across that stretch, compares it to the same stretch a year earlier, and the percentage difference becomes your raise for the following year. And then it's announced in the middle of October and shows up in your checks starting in January. Do you see what that means? August is not a quiet month for your benefit. August is one of the 3 months that literally determines how big your raise is going to be. The data being collected right now is writing your next check. And the early projections for this coming adjustment are pointing to something in the neighborhood of a raise meaningfully bigger than last year's. Last year's adjustment was 2.8%, and current estimates for the next one have been running higher than that. Now, I have to be straight with you. Those are projections, not the final number, because 2 of the 3 months that decide it are still being measured. It could land higher, it could land lower, and anyone who tells you the exact final figure right now is guessing. But the direction is encouraging, and after several years of raises that barely kept pace with the grocery bill, a bigger one would be real relief for millions of households. And there's a second piece of good news I want to circle back to, because it ties this whole video together. Remember the earnings test from Rule 2? The one where Social Security holds back part of your check if you work and earn too much before full retirement age? Here's what I told you, and I want to hammer it home, that withheld money is not lost. When you reach your full retirement age, the agency recalculates and effectively gives it back to you as a higher monthly benefit for the rest of your life. So one of the scariest sounding rules on this list actually has a refund built into it that most people never realize they're owed. Put those two together, and the picture isn't all doom. Yes, there are traps this August, but there's also a raise being decided in real time, and there's money some of you thought you lost that's coming back. The system isn't only taking, sometimes it gives. You just have to know where to look. So let me pull all of this together into what you actually do, because knowing 5 rules is worthless unless it turns into a handful of simple moves. Here they are. First, check how you get paid. If you're still receiving a paper check, switch to direct deposit or a direct express card this week by calling Social Security directly before a missing check forces you to do it in a panic. If you're already electronic, you're set. This one's off your list. Second, if you're under full retirement age and still working, know your earnings number. $24,480 for the year if you're under full retirement age the whole time. Do the math on where you'll land by December, and if you're going to cross it, expect some checks to be held back. And remember, you'll get that money back later as a higher benefit. Third, before you claim, or if you claimed recently, confirm your full retirement age. It's 67 for anyone born in 1960 or later, and understand exactly what claiming early does to your specific check. Pull your statement, look at your own numbers, and make that decision with your eyes open because it's permanent. Fourth, and I cannot say this strongly enough, open every single piece of mail from Social Security the day it arrives and act on it immediately. If it's an overpayment notice, respond inside the window. Ask for a lower rate, a reconsideration, or a waiver. A missed deadline is the single fastest way to lose part of your check when you didn't have to. And fifth, mark your calendar for the middle of October, because that's when your next raise gets announced, the one being calculated from the inflation data right now, this August. Knowing it's coming and knowing roughly how it's shaping up lets you plan your next year instead of being surprised by it. I spent more than 2 decades inside this system, and if there's one thing all those years taught me, it's that the people who hold on to every dollar they're owed aren't the lucky ones, and they aren't the sophisticated ones. They're simply the ones who saw the rules coming and acted early instead of getting caught flat-footed. That's the entire difference. And Social Security is just one piece of a much bigger picture. Because so many of you have asked me to gather the deadlines, the forms, the earnings numbers, and the quiet rights most beneficiaries never use into one simple place. I put it together into a plain English checklist you can actually use. Not written for a caseworker, written for you. If that's something that would help, I'll point you to it below, and it's there for one reason, to help you keep every dollar that belongs to you. Let me leave you with this. Your Social Security check is not just a number that lands in your account. It's the rent, it's the groceries, it's the prescriptions and the gas in the tank and the small dignity of not having to ask anyone for help. And nobody should lose a piece of that over a rule they never knew existed, or a letter they never opened. These changes are moving quietly, all at once, this August. But now you're not one of the people who gets caught by surprise. You know the paper check is finished. You know the earnings limit springs shut in the late summer. You know full retirement age moved to 67. You know the overpayment letter is the real danger. And you know your next raise is being decided right now, this very month. So here's what I want you to do with all of that. This only protects the people who actually hear it. So if it was useful to you, send it to one other person who lives on this money. A parent, a spouse, a neighbor, a brother or a sister who's drawing a check and has no idea any of this is in motion. You might be the reason they keep the money that's theirs instead of losing part of it to a rule they never saw. And then come back and tell me in the comments which of these 5 surprised you the most, and whether you claimed early, on time, or late. Because the right move is different for everybody, and I read what you leave down there. Subscribe if you want more of this. Clear, plain answers about protecting your money, your benefits, and your independence from someone who spent a career watching how this actually works from the inside. Take care of yourself and protect every dollar that's yours.